We will call to order the regular board meeting of the Chicago Board of Election Commissioners. Good morning. My name is Maricel Hernandez. I'm the chair. And with me today is William Cressy.
Good morning. I am here.
Next item on the agenda is the consideration of the agenda. Commissioner, any edits or changes?
None that I've seen necessary.
Thank you. Then we will proceed with the approval of the regular board meeting minutes of December 28, 2021, and I will make the motion to approve. Is there a second?
Commissioner Cressy seconds.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. All those in favor, please state aye. Commissioner Hernandez votes aye.
Commissioner Cressy votes aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the Executive Director's Report. Mr. Holliday.
Morning, Madam Chair, Commissioner Cressy. First, I would like to report that we have a proposal that has been presented from 191 North Clark for our super site for our upcoming election cycle. We looked at other sites, but 191 offered the terms that the board was looking for. So at the next board meeting, we should be presenting a contract for that. Just a brief status of redistriction. Voters in our voter VR system and online are using the new districts. All maps except for precinct maps are completed, and they are in the process of being created at this point. When requests are made for voter data, the new districts are being used. Walk sheets are using the new districts as well. I have a meeting scheduled this week along with Clint Hurd and Sandra Spare with building management to look at extra space where we can use to conduct our vote by mail process for the upcoming elections. Petition circulation start January 13th. We received calls about coming in next week to start checking signatures. We're putting some process in place and guidelines for once they do arrive. We are working toward March. We're working toward March to send out our mail canvas to all the voters with their updated districts and the notice to request to be on the permanent vote by mail list. And that's all I have to report, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
There, go ahead, take it off mute. Question, Charles, and some of this will go to Adam as well. The canvas being in March, that we may not have ward numbers on that at that point, correct?
Well, it will have the current ward numbers on it.
Okay.
Because those maps as of yet has changed. So we have to use the old ward lines with the new district lines.
Okay. Now, if there is a sudden change and something gets approved in the city council, what would be like a drop dead date for putting in new wards? Are we just going to go with the old wards through June? Something to think about.
Yeah, that's something to think about. And
okay.
I can confer with Adam on that.
Very good. Okay, thank you.
Okay. And now we will hear from our Assistant Executive Director, Sandra Aspera. Sandra.
Good morning, and thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, Commissioner Cressy. Due to the holidays, I have no updates at this time to report. I will, though, have many items to report on the next board meeting.
Okay, thank you. And now we go to our Public Information Director, Max Bever. Good morning, Max.
Good morning. Thank you, Chairwoman. This is Max Bever, Director of Public Information, with just a few brief updates. We've got National Poll Worker Recruitment Day coming up on January 25th, 2022. Thanks for a reminder there, Charles. We might not have our applications ready since obviously the election was pushed back until June 28th for us, but we do have materials from the EAC that we'll use and will celebrate poll workers, our judges and coordinators during this day, as well as make aware of when the info will be out, then they can apply. We sent out a press release for the new district maps that are up on our website. Reporters have been using that link and our links as a resource both for news media and for candidates. So I thank the whole team for working on that. And as Charles mentioned, we had an all-staff meeting to take a look at our Canvas mailing. Adam and I are working on language. We will have a draft with our designers soon. Part of the thought there is to make sure that people have the opportunity to get their vote by mail ballot or an opportunity to put themselves on the permanent roster ahead of the primary election. Also, it's helpful for additional safety as COVID numbers continue to go up too. Thank you, and that is my report.
Thank you. Okay, we next will proceed to old business, infrastructure projects and changes in election administration, voting equipment, and electronic poll books. Are there any developments there?
Nothing to report on my end, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Legislation, Mr. Lasker?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and may it please the board. Last week, Wednesday, the Illinois General Assembly did push through 2 fast-track bills that had some election matters involved with them. They have now since been signed by the governor, so they are in law. That's creation of Public Act 102-0692, which was from House Bill 1953, and Public Act 102-0693, which was House Bill 3138. Just to review some of the election matters in there. There was new legislation previously passed last June that affects the 2022 primary and 2022 general election. That previously approved legislation still allowed for people to come in person to receive, to apply in person for a vote by mail ballot up until 1 day before the election. They have now done away with that rule and have the cutoff for vote by mail applications all across the board as June 23rd for the June 28th primary election. So that's 5 days before the election. The general rule is vote by mail applications get cut off that 5th day before the election, but you could still come down to our offices and apply in person. Now, our board has had a longstanding practice where when people come within those 5 days before the election, we have, of course, a vote center set up, a small vote center set up in our 6th floor office. And we would ask those people, please just step over to the touchscreen and cast your ballot right now. Because we always have the concern that if they're coming in that close to the election and we're handing them a ballot, which they've got the right to request, is the post office actually going to return it to us in time? So we will continue to have the voting option available in our 6th floor for anybody who does come in. Of course, we will also encourage everybody instead to go to the voting super site, which it does now sound like will be returning to 191 North Clark Street, which we know was a good location. The voters were very happy by it last election cycle in 2020. It served us well. So again, let's just hope that all the voters go towards your early voting super site. The second matter is something that we'll discuss a little more, or it'll play a role a little more in our electoral board cases in April. The circulator's affidavit has now been statutorily tweaked for the candidates nominating petitions in relation to the fact that the circulation period for the primary election is not quite 90 days. And so they've made some suggested language for how circulators can deal with that on the nominating petition sheets. And finally, there is a lot of work on judicial subcircuits involved in this legislation. They have drafted, they've got the maps drawn for the judicial subcircuits within Cook County. But the news for us of importance is that they will not go into effect, these new judicial subcircuits in Cook County, until December 2nd, 2024. And so that puts us after the next presidential election. So we have obviously plenty of time then to implement those new judicial subcircuits. The judicial subcircuits were created in 1994, so it will be an exactly 30-year period in between when they were redistricted. So it's going to be nice to see the modernization to the judicial subcircuits, but not until the 2026 election cycle will they be in effect. That is my legislative update for today. Thank you.
Quick question, Adam, on that 5-day cutoff, for the vote by mail ballots. if someone brought in an application for a vote by mail ballot for someone else, say an adult child for their parent, would we then mail it out, or does that parent have to come in?
Well, under the existing rule, it was by personal delivery. It was, you had to come in and give the application yourself. So that's not going to be allowed anymore. They've eliminated that for the June primary. Okay, it'll go back into effect in November unless they change it.
Okay.
So we'll work with Max to make sure people understand it. I would point out that that's not a very often used procedure. We do have people who come into our office asking how to vote, but most of them would just say, "Oh, I can go to the machine over there. Great, I'll do it."
Yeah.
The
Right.
people actually coming in last minute for vote by mail, my understanding is that's a very minimal number of people, and we'll just get signs up posted and spread the word as much as we can ahead of time.
I'm sorry, Adam. I'm a professor. Hypothetical questions are my expertise. So
Well,
occupational hazard.
and they're just like bar exam questions for me. We got to keep asking the hypotheticals because they can and will happen around here.
That's right. Okay.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
Next item is new business. And the first item is approval of a bid award to Johnson and Quinn for the 2022 and 2023 ballot printing. Is there someone here Adam?
Yes, Madam Chair, if I may, thank you. Opal Walls, the board's procurement officer, did a full invitation for bids, or IFB, process for this ballot printing. Ms. Walls has asked that I make the presentation today because she has to be at the board's warehouse for she's working on the cartage procurement and having a meeting with vendors there today as a part of that process. Please excuse her absence. She also has Al Chase here on the line. He is the subject matter expert, the SME, for this particular bid with the ballot printing. So if you have any specific questions about the numbers and the services and so forth, Al is on the line for that. In the meantime, let me point out that this is the first time in modern history, I guess, the modern times, that the board has had to do an IFB for ballot printing. In previous years, there was only one printing house in the state of Illinois that was certified by Dominion to print Dominion ballots. There have recently become two new vendors, and with that, there's no longer sole source availability, so this went out to bid. Ms. Walls did advertise the IFB on December 15th. Bids were submitted on January 5th, and she received what she said to me was the clear award winner, that being the lowest priced, responsive, and responsible bidder, being Johnson and Quinn. This is going to be for ballot printing for the precinct ballots, not for vote by mail. That's a separate process. This is the precinct ballots for all four of the elections that will be held in both 2022 and 2023. And there's three options to extend, so we can also extend at this pricing. I will point out, however, that the pricing for paper costs is locked in only for 2022. Because of fluctuations in the paper market, the contract does allow for deviations in the pricing on that for the future years. That provision was in the prior contracts with the board. It's very reasonable because the printers have just no control over what the cost of paper is going to be at the time that it needs to be procured. They also, I've been informed, need to have fresh paper. We can't just buy all the paper now and have it sitting around for several years. So that provision is in there. But the pricing for the printing, which is the bulk of the cost, is locked in for the next four elections with the option to extend. The pricing on that is $860,000 per election, which means that the whole contract for the 2 years and all four elections shall not exceed $3,440,000. The durational term of this contract will begin tomorrow and extend 2 years. So that's, and absent any questions, that's my summary of the procurement and the bid award that we're requesting.
And
Go ahead.
to a certain extent, Adam, we have had Johnson and Quinn provide some services for us.
That is correct. First of all, Johnson and Quinn did print some or many of our in-precinct ballots in November of 2020 as a subcontractor. They had just, in the summer of 2020, Johnson and Quinn became certified from Dominion, which then authorized them to be a subcontractor with Lake County Press, who was our print shop back then. So they did print our ballots for November 2020, and we had no complaints. I don't know if you remember, we had some Sharpie marker issues in the primary of 2020. That was all eliminated. Everything worked just fine. We had no complaints that I heard about for anything related to ballots in November of 2020. I believe Johnson & Quinn has also done other printing matters for the board. And so we have a bit of a track record with them, enough to have good faith in their abilities. They communicate well with our office and work well with us as well.
Yeah, Adam, I'm happy to note that they're located just in Niles, so that's good. And also, did we receive bids from the other two printers that are also certified by Dominion?
Lake County Press, which is our prior vendor, did submit a bid. They were responsive and responsible, but they were not the lowest priced.
Okay. So
Yep.
there was in fact more than one bid. That's good to hear. Thank you.
Yes, yes.
Okay. If there are no further questions, is there a motion to approve a contract award for 2022 and 2023 ballot printing services to Johnson & Quinn as the lowest price responsive and responsible bidder with a contract value not to exceed $860,000 per election or $3,444,000 over the 2-year term of the agreement, which shall run from January 12, 2022 through January 11, 2024, and that is subject to any fluctuations in paper industry pricing for 2023 and future years.
So moved by Commissioner Cressy.
Seconded by Commissioner Hernandez. All those in favor, please state aye.
Commissioner Cressy votes aye.
Commissioner Hernandez votes aye. Motion passes. The next item on the agenda is the adoption of the 2022 guidelines for advisory referenda. Mr. Lasker?
Thanks again, Madam Chair. The board does every election cycle print guidelines for those petitioners and for the city of Chicago, essentially for the city council, for the adoption of advisory referendum petitions and resolutions or ordinances from the city council. So we have provided you with the draft copy of those updated guidelines for 2022. The only real change, as previously mentioned, there's some legislation that affects these 2022 elections, and the petition filing period is slightly different, but those dates are now properly reflected in this guide.
Right. Are there any questions?
No
If
questions.
not, is there a motion to adopt and publish the 2022 guidelines for advisory referenda? I will move. Is there a second?
Commissioner Cressy seconds.
Okay, all those properly moved and seconded, all those in favor, please state aye. Commissioner Hernandez votes aye.
And Commissioner Cressy votes aye.
Motion passes. Next item is the adoption of the 2022 guidelines for local option referenda. Mr. Lasker?
Thank you, Madam Chair. As a reminder, local option referenda are those involving the sale of alcohol within specific precincts or an entire ward. A precinct may be voted dry to prohibit the sale of alcohol, or a dry precinct may be voted wet to allow the sale of alcohol. These are all under the Liquor Control Act, Illinois state statutes. We also, the board, every election cycle does publish a guide for these referenda. As a reminder to the public, these petitions would be filed in the office of the city clerk. They're not filed in the Board of Election Commissioners office. Same with any objections to those petitions, filed with the city clerk and heard by the circuit court, not by our electoral board. No real changes to this other than the dates and deadlines. The statutes affecting the elections did not change the manner in which local option referenda are performed. The petition circulation period begins March 27th, and so I'm glad we're getting these guidelines out there ahead of that.
Great. Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt and publish the 2022 guidelines for local option referenda?
So moved by Commissioner Cressy.
Seconded by Commissioner Hernandez. All those in favor, please state aye.
Commissioner Cressy votes aye.
Commissioner Hernandez votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Next on the agenda is legal report. Mr. Lasker, do we have anything?
There's not a lot, which is good news. Not a lot going on in the legal department in terms of litigation or anything. The cases that you know are pending don't have any major updates at the moment. I did want to point out that last week, Friday, the Illinois Department of Labor adopted the federal government's OSHA's vaccination testing rules. So the federal government through OSHA has created vaccination requirement rules that would apply to private businesses, but also government employers with 100 or more employees. And so with the State Department of Labor adopting that rule for Illinois, that's going to go into effect on February 24th. So the board, as an employee, a government employer with more than 100 employees, will have to make sure that its COVID policies are in compliance. My first review of what OSHA requires makes it look like we're in pretty good shape, but I will work with Joan Agnew and the HR department and just make sure that the standards we have are up to snuff. I think we're in good shape, but I just point that out.
Right.
That's my report.
Thank you. Thank you. We have no financial report. Trish, is there any request for public comment?
No, there's no request for public comment.
Okay, is there a need for executive session, Mr. Lasker?
No, Madam Chair, not today. Thank you.
Okay, if not, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting of January 11, 2022.
So moved by Commissioner Cressy.
And I will second it. All those in favor, please state aye.
Commissioner Cressy votes aye.
Commissioner Hernandez votes aye. Thank you all very, very much. Have a great day, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
All right, take care.
Bye, everyone. Stay healthy.
Everybody.
Stay healthy.
Yes, please stay healthy. Take care.
Bye-bye.